The morning sun shone through the tall windows of City Hall as Diane Powell walked down the long hallway. Her shoes made soft sounds on the marble floor. She checked her watch. It was 9:15 a.m., and her meeting with Mayor Frank Collins was at 9:30. Diane was always early. Being on time meant being 15 minutes early, a habit from her 20 years on the police force. Diane straightened her navy blue blazer and touched her natural hair, making sure it looked neat. At 45, she had earned every gray strand that mixed with the black. Each one told a story of late-night solving cases, of being the only black woman in rooms full of white male officers, of fighting twice as hard to get half as far. She reached the mayor's office and took a deep breath. Diane wasn't sure why Mayor Collins had called this private meeting. Her mind went through all the recent cases she had handled as head detective in the homicide division. Had she stepped on important toes, made a mistake, or was this about the Johnson case that had made headlines last month? Detective Powell, the mayor will see you now, said the secretary, a young woman with a kind smile. Diane nodded and walked into the large office. Mayor Collins stood up from behind his desk. He was a tall man with salt and pepper hair and tired eyes that had seen too many city problems. Detective Powell, thank you for coming. Please, have a seat, the mayor said, pointing to the chair, across from his desk. Diane sat down, her back straight, hands folded in her lap. Thank you for inviting me, Mayor Collins. The mayor smiled and sat back down. I'll get right to the point, Detective. I've been watching your work for years now. Your record is impressive. Highest solve rate in the department. Strong community ties, respected by your peers. You've done what many thought impossible in this city. Diane nodded slightly but stayed quiet. She had learned long ago to let people finish their thoughts before responding. The thing is, Diane, May, I call you Diane? Our police department needs change, real change, not just words in press conferences or new policies that get ignored. We need new leadership. Diane's heart beat faster. Was he offering what she thought he was offering? Commissioner Johnson is retiring next month. I need someone to take his place. Someone who understands both sides, the badge and the community. Someone who can build bridges where there are now only walls. The mayor leaned forward. I want you to be our new police commissioner. Diane blinked, trying to keep her face calm even as her mind raced. Police commissioner, the highest position in the department. No black woman had ever held the title in the city's history. I'm honored, sir. But I have to ask, why me? There are deputy commissioners and captains with more rank. Mayor Collins nodded. Rank isn't everything. Those men have been part of the same system, the same way of thinking for decades. The city doesn't need more of the same. We need someone who sees things differently, someone who has walked in different shoes. Diane thought of her father, who had also been a police officer. He had joined the force in the 1970s. One of the first black officers in the department. He had faced hatred from both sides, the white officers who didn't want him there and the black community who saw him as a traitor. He had taught Diane that true change happens from the inside. The job won't be easy, the mayor continued. You'll face resistance from the old guard. Some of the rank and file won't like taking orders from a black woman. The community might not trust you at first because you wear the badge. You'll be caught in the middle. I've been caught in the middle. My whole life, sir, Diane said with a small smile. It's familiar territory, the mayor laughed. I suppose it is. He became serious again. There's one more thing. I want to keep this quiet for 2 weeks. You'll need time to wrap up your current cases, and I need time to prepare the department for the announcement. Only my immediate staff will know for now. Diane thought about what this meant. For 2 weeks, she would know something life-changing but would have to keep it to herself. She would walk into the precinct each day as Detective Powell, knowing soon she would return as Commissioner Powell. I understand, sir. I can be discreet. Good. We'll make the official announcement 2 weeks from today. Until then, business as usual. The mayor stood and offered his hand. Congratulations, Commissioner Powell. Diane stood and shook his hand firmly. Thank you for your trust, Mayor Collins. I won't let you down. As Diane left City Hall, the weight of what had just happened began to sink in. She had joined the force 20 years ago, fresh out of college with a criminal justice degree. Most of the other rookies had been white men from police families. They had made bets on how long the black girl would last. None of them had bet more than 6 months. She walked to her car, a sensible blue sedan that blended in during stakeouts. The city streets were busy with morning traffic. People rushed to work, unaware that history had just been made in the mayor's office. Diane drove to her small apartment on the edge of downtown. She had the day off and needed time to think. Her apartment was neat and simple. Photos of her parents sat on the bookshelf, her father in his police uniform smiling proudly. Her mother in her nurse's uniform, kind eyes looking at the camera, both gone now, but their lessons remained. She made a cup of coffee and sat at her kitchen table. Commissioner Powell. The title felt strange, like clothes that didn't quite fit yet. She thought of all the changes she wanted to make. Better training, on bias and de-escalation, more community involvement, accountability for bad officers, trust building with neighborhoods that had been over-policed and underserved. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was her cousin Leon. "Hey, Di. How's my favorite detective?" Leon's voice was cheerful as always. "I'm good, Leon. How's the store?" Leon owned a small bodega in the West Side neighborhood where they had grown up. "That's why I'm calling. I have to go out of town for a few days. Mom's not feeling well and I need to check on her. Can you keep an eye on the store while I'm gone? Just make sure the delivery comes in on Wednesday." "Of course. Do you need me to open up at all?" "Nah, I've got Miguel covering the hours. But if you could just check the locks and make sure everything looks okay each day, that would be great. You still have the spare key, right?" "Yes, I've got it," Diane said, thinking of the old key on her keyring. Leon's store had been in the family for 3 generations. It was one of the few black-owned businesses that had survived in a changing neighborhood. "Thanks, Di. You're the best. I'll call you when I get to Mom's." After they hung up, Diane finished her coffee and looked out the window at the city skyline. Her city. Soon she would be responsible for its safety in a whole new way. The next week passed in a blur. Diane worked on closing her open cases and preparing her files for whoever would take over. She didn't tell anyone about her new position, not even her close friend and fellow detective Maria Sanchez. Keeping the secret was hard, especially when the other officers talked about who might replace Commissioner Johnson. "It'll probably be Captain Rogers," said Officer Pete Miller during a coffee break. "He's got the most time in." "No way," argued Detective Bill Sampson. "Deputy Commissioner Winters has been kissing up to the mayor for years. It's definitely him." Diane just sipped her coffee and said nothing. In the evening, she drove by Leon's store as promised. The neighborhood had changed over the years. New apartment buildings with high rents stood next to old family homes. Coffee shops and wine bars had replaced some of the corner stores and soul food restaurants. Some called it progress. Others called it pushing people out. On Wednesday morning, her day off, Diane drove to Leon's store to check on the delivery. She wore jeans, sneakers, and a gray hoodie, her usual day-off clothes. As she parked across the street, she noticed a police cruiser driving slowly down the block. Diane didn't think much of it. She was used to seeing patrols in the area. She got out of her car and walked to the store's front door. The key Leon had given her years ago was old and sometimes stuck in the lock. She jiggled it, trying to get it to turn. The police cruiser stopped. Diane didn't notice at first, focused on the stubborn lock. When she heard the car door slam, she looked up to see a young white officer approaching her, hand resting on his holster. "Step away from the door, ma'am," the officer called out. His name tag read, Gregory. Diane slowly took her hand off the key, which remained stuck in the lock. 20 years of police work had taught her how to handle situations like this. "Stay calm. Move slowly. Explain clearly." "Officer, I can explain. This is my cousin's store. I'm just checking on it while he's out of town." Officer Gregory's hand didn't move from his gun. His face was set in a hard expression that Diane had seen too many times before, the look of an officer who had already decided what he was seeing. "Step away from the door and put your hands where I can see them." Diane knew what was coming next. In 2 weeks, she would be this young officer's boss, but today she was just another black person trying to prove she belonged where she stood. Officer Kevin Gregory was having a bad day. It started when his alarm failed to go off, making him rush to get to roll call on time. Then his partner called in sick, which meant he had to patrol alone. His sergeant had given him a hard time about a report he had filed yesterday saying it was sloppy work. Now, 3 hours into his shift, he hadn't made a single arrest or even written a ticket. He felt like he was failing. Kevin came from a family of police officers. His father had been a cop for 30 years. His grandfather had been a cop before that. They had big shoes to fill, and Kevin often felt he was falling short. 3 years on the force, and he was still trying to prove himself. As Kevin drove slowly down Madison Street, he noticed a woman in a gray hoodie standing at the door of Leon's Grocery and Deli. The store wasn't open yet. He knew because he patrolled this area often. The woman was fiddling with the lock, looking around nervously. Kevin had heard about recent break-ins in the area. This looked suspicious. He pulled his cruiser to the curb and watched for a moment. The woman was black, maybe in her 40s. She didn't look like any store owner he knew in the area. Store owners usually dressed better, he thought. And why would she be using the front door if she owned the place? Most shop owners came in through the back. Kevin made a decision. This could be the arrest that would impress his sergeant. He put his hand on his gun and got out of the car. "Step away from the door, ma'am," he called out firmly. The woman slowly took her hand off the key, which was stuck in the lock. Kevin approached carefully, the way they had taught him at the academy. Never assume a suspect is unarmed. Never let your guard down. "Officer, I can explain. This is my cousin's store. I'm just checking on it while he's out of town," the woman said in a calm voice. Kevin didn't believe her. Criminals always had stories. He had heard them all by now. He kept his hand near his gun. "Step away from the door and put your hands where I can see them," he ordered. The woman slowly raised her hands to shoulder height. "Officer, my name is Diane Powell. I'm a detective with the City Police Department Homicide Division. If you'll allow me to reach for my ID, don't move." Kevin's voice grew louder. A crowd was starting to gather on the sidewalk. Some people had their phones out recording the scene. Kevin felt the pressure building. He couldn't back down now, not with everyone watching. What if she was lying about being a cop? What if she reached for a weapon instead of an ID? "Turn around and place your hands against the wall," he commanded. Diane turned slowly and placed her hands on the wall of the store. "Officer, you're making a mistake. I have identification in my back pocket. I'm a police detective." Kevin didn't listen. He had been trained to take control of situations, and that's what he was doing. He pulled her hands behind her back and snapped on the handcuffs, perhaps a little tighter than necessary. "I'm placing you under arrest for attempted breaking and entering," he announced loudly so the growing crowd could hear. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney." As he recited the Miranda rights that he had memorized at the academy, Kevin felt a surge of pride. This is what real police work looked like: taking criminals off the street, protecting property, keeping the neighborhood safe. "Officer, this is a serious mistake," Diane said calmly after he finished. "I am Detective Powell from the Homicide Division. The key in that door was given to me by my cousin Leon Jackson, the owner of this store. If you check my back pocket, you'll find my badge and ID." Kevin scoffed. "Sure, and I'm the chief of police. Save it for the station." He guided her toward his cruiser, aware of the phones recording his every move. He felt important, like a TV cop making a big arrest. An older man pushed through the small crowd. "That's Leon's cousin. She's a cop. What are you doing?" Kevin ignored him. Bystanders always tried to interfere. They didn't understand police work. They didn't know the risks officers faced every day. He put Diane in the back seat of his cruiser and closed the door. Then he went back to the store to remove the key from the lock. Evidence, he thought. He put it in a small plastic bag from his pocket. As Kevin drove toward the station, he glanced at Diane in his rearview mirror. She sat calmly looking out the window. Most people he arrested were angry or scared. They cursed or cried or begged to be let go. Her calmness made him uncomfortable. So you're claiming to be a cop? He asked, breaking the silence. I am not claiming anything, Officer Gregory, Diane replied. I am stating a fact. I am Detective Diane Powell, badge number 4572, Homicide Division. I've been on the force for 20 years, and you are making the biggest mistake of your career right now. The way she said his name startled Kevin. He hadn't introduced himself. Then he remembered his name tag. Of course. If you're really a cop, why didn't you just show me your ID right away? He challenged. I tried to tell you I had identification, but you wouldn't let me reach for it, Diane said evenly. And before you ask why I didn't identify myself immediately, I've found that in certain situations, especially when I'm not in uniform, it's better to comply first and explain second. Less chance of misunderstandings that way. Kevin frowned. That actually sounded like something they taught at the academy, but he wasn't going to admit he might be wrong. Not now. He had already made the arrest. If he brought her in and she turned out to be a civilian, he would look good for catching a potential burglar. If she really was a cop, well, he would deal with that at the station. The precinct building came into view. It was an old brick structure with modern additions, glass doors and security cameras. Kevin parked in the designated spot for officers, bringing in suspects, and took a deep breath. He was still convinced he had made a good arrest. The woman's story seemed far-fetched. A detective checking on her cousin's store? Why would a detective be dressed like that? Why wouldn't she have shown her badge right away? Kevin got out and opened the back door. Let's go. He led Diane through the back entrance and into the booking area. The room was busy with officers at desks filling out paperwork. A few looked up as they entered. Got a B&E suspect, Kevin announced proudly, guiding Diane forward. The room suddenly went quiet. An officer at a nearby desk stood up, his face pale. Gregory, what the hell? Kevin looked around, confused by the reaction. More officers were staring now. Some with shock, others with what looked like fear on their faces. A woman in a sergeant's uniform rushed over. Kevin recognized her as Sergeant Martinez from the Homicide Division. Gregory, what are you doing? She demanded, quickly pulling out keys to unlock the handcuffs on Diane. Booking a suspect, Sarge, Kevin replied, his confidence starting to fade. Caught her breaking into a store on Madison. Sergeant Martinez removed the handcuffs and gave Kevin a look that made him step back. That's not a suspect, you idiot. That's Detective Powell, my boss, head of homicide. Kevin felt his stomach drop. He looked at Diane, who was rubbing her wrists where the handcuffs had been too tight. But the store, he stammered. The door to the captain's office opened, and Captain Sam Bennett walked out. He took in the scene, his face darkening, when he saw Diane. Detective Powell, are you all right? The captain asked, his voice tight. I'm fine, Sam, Diane answered. Just a misunderstanding. Captain Bennett turned to Kevin. Officer Gregory in my office now. Kevin felt like the floor was tilting beneath his feet. He had arrested a superior officer, not just any superior officer, but the head of homicide. His career was over before it had really begun. As he followed the captain to his office, Kevin heard the whispers start behind him. This would be all over the department by the end of the day. Officer Gregory, the rookie who arrested a detective because he was too proud to listen. The door closed behind him, and Kevin stood at attention, his back straight, eyes forward. The captain sat at his desk and looked at him for a long moment. Officer. Gregory, do you know who Detective Powell is? Captain Bennett asked finally. Yes, sir, I do now, sir. Head of homicide, Kevin answered, his mouth dry. She's more than that, the captain said quietly. She's our new police commissioner. Kevin felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The captain's words echoed in his head. Police commissioner. He had arrested the new police commissioner. Sir, I didn't know. Kevin finally managed to say. His voice sounded small even to his own ears. That's clear, Captain Bennett said. He leaned back in his chair and sighed. The announcement wasn't supposed to happen for another week, only a few people knew. But now, thanks to your actions today, The mayor is calling an emergency press conference for tomorrow morning. Kevin's legs felt weak. He wanted to sit down, but he hadn't been given permission. What happens now, sir? That depends on Detective Powell. Or I should say, Commissioner Powell. The captain looked at Kevin with tired eyes. Do you understand the seriousness of what you've done, Gregory? You arrested a superior officer who tried to identify herself. You refused to listen. You put her in handcuffs in public, in her own neighborhood where people know her. Kevin swallowed hard. Yes, sir. The bodega's security camera recorded everything. So did the dashboard camera in your cruiser, and at least 5 citizens were recording with their phones. The captain tapped his finger on the desk. By tonight, it will be all over social media. By tomorrow, it will be on the news. Kevin felt sick. His career was over. Worse, his family would see it. His father and grandfather would know he had failed. Go wait in the break room, Captain Bennett ordered. Don't talk to anyone. I need to speak with Commissioner Powell and the mayor. Kevin left the office, his face burning with shame. The booking area fell silent as he walked through. Eyes followed him, some with anger, others with pity. He made his way to the break room and sat at an empty table, staring at nothing. Time passed slowly. Officers came and went, getting coffee or snacks from the vending machines. Some glanced at Kevin. None spoke to him. He heard snippets of conversation. Can't believe he arrested Powell. Career suicide. What was he thinking? The door opened and Sergeant Martinez entered. She got a cup of coffee and then, to Kevin's surprise, sat down across from him. You really messed up, Gregory, she said bluntly. Kevin nodded. There was nothing to say. Know why you messed up? She asked, taking a sip of her coffee. Kevin thought about it. I didn't listen. I jumped to conclusions. Sergeant Martinez nodded. That's part of it. But there's more. She leaned forward. You saw a black woman in casual clothes at a store in that neighborhood, and you made assumptions. Would you have reacted the same way if it had been a white man in a suit? The question hit Kevin hard. He wanted to say yes, that he would have treated anyone suspicious the same way. But would he? Would he have approached? Would he have been so quick to put on handcuffs? Would he have refused to check ID? I don't know, he admitted. Sergeant Martinez seemed surprised by his honesty. At least you're thinking about it now. That's something. The door opened again, and Captain Bennett entered. Gregory, Commissioner Powell wants to see you. Kevin stood up, his heart pounding. This was it. She was going to fire him personally, maybe even press charges for wrongful arrest. He followed the captain to the conference room. Inside, Diane Powell sat at the head of the table. She had changed from her casual clothes into a professional pantsuit. She looked completely different now, authoritative, commanding. How had he not seen it before? Officer Gregory, she said, gesturing to a chair. Please sit down. Kevin sat, keeping his back straight, eyes forward. Do you know why I became a police officer? Diane asked. The question was not what Kevin had expected. No, ma'am, he replied. My father was a cop. One of the first black officers in this department. He faced discrimination from both sides. Fellow officers who didn't want him here, and community members who saw him as a traitor. Diane's voice was calm but firm. He taught me that real change happens from the inside. That's why I joined. Why did you become an officer, Gregory? Kevin hesitated. My father and grandfather were both cops. It's a family tradition. Diane nodded. Family legacy, that's a heavy weight to carry. She studied him for a moment. Tell me what happened today from your perspective. Kevin was surprised again. She wanted his side of the story, after what he had done. I was patrolling Madison Street, he began slowly. I saw you at the store door. It looked suspicious to me because the store wasn't open yet. You were in casual clothes and it seemed like you were having trouble with the lock. So you made an assumption based on appearance, Diane said. It wasn't a question. Yes, ma'am. And when I tried to explain and offered to show ID? Kevin looked down at his hands. I didn't listen. I was focused on making the arrest. I thought. He paused, realizing how it would sound. You thought it would look good, Diane finished for him. A solid arrest to impress your sergeant. Yes, ma'am. Diane was quiet for a moment. The mayor wants me to fire you. He says it would send a message that bias won't be tolerated in our department. Kevin nodded, accepting his fate. But I'm not going to do that, Diane continued. Kevin looked up, shocked. You're not? No. Firing you might make a good headline, for a day, but it wouldn't solve the real problem. Diane leaned forward. The problem isn't just you, Officer Gregory. It's a culture that rewards arrests over understanding. It's training that emphasizes control over communication. It's a system that often sees certain people as suspects first and citizens second. Kevin didn't know what to say. Instead of firing you, I'm assigning you to help develop a new training program. You'll work with community leaders and experienced officers to create better approaches to community policing. You'll learn about bias recognition and cultural competency, and you'll teach other officers what you learn. Kevin couldn't believe what he was hearing. You're giving me a second chance? I'm giving the department a chance to be better, Diane corrected him. You're just going to help make that happen. The door opened and Mayor Collins entered, looking angry. Is it done? Is he fired? Diane stood. No, Frank. We're taking a different approach. Officer Gregory is going to help us change the department, not leave it. The mayor frowned. Diane, we talked about this. The optics. I'm not concerned with optics, Diane interrupted. I'm concerned with real change. Firing one officer won't fix a broken system. Mayor Collins looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Diane's expression stopped him. It's your call, Commissioner. You start officially tomorrow. He turned and left the room. Diane looked back at Kevin. The press conference is at 9 a.m. tomorrow. The story of your mistake will come out. People will be angry. Some will call for your badge. Are you prepared for that? Kevin thought about it. The shame, the public criticism, the disappointment from his family, but also the chance to learn, to grow, to help make real change. Yes, ma'am, I'm prepared. Diane nodded. Good, because this won't be easy. Real change never is. She gathered her papers. Report to my office tomorrow afternoon. We have work to do. As Kevin left the conference room, he felt something he hadn't expected. Hope. He had made a terrible mistake today. He had let bias and ambition cloud his judgment. He had hurt and humiliated a good officer who was about to become his boss. But instead of ending his career, she was challenging him to be better. To help make the department better. In the locker room, Kevin changed out of his uniform. His phone showed 15 missed calls, mostly from his father. News traveled fast in police families. The hard conversations were still to come. As he walked to his car, Kevin saw Sergeant Martinez in the parking lot. So? She asked. Are you fired? No, Kevin replied. I'm being reassigned to help develop a new training program with Commissioner Powell. Sergeant Martinez raised her eyebrows. Interesting choice. She's giving you a chance to fix what you broke. Kevin nodded. I won't waste it. Good, Sergeant Martinez said. Because tomorrow, when that press conference happens, all hell is going to break loose. The media, the public, everyone will be watching. How you handle it will say a lot about who you really are. Kevin drove home slowly, thinking about everything that had happened. One day had changed his life completely. One mistake, one arrest, one moment of not listening, not seeing the person in front of him. Tomorrow would be hard. The next weeks and months would be harder. But for the first time in his career, Kevin felt like he might learn what it really meant to protect and serve. The next morning dawned bright and clear, but Kevin felt only dread as he got ready. He had barely slept. His father had called 3 more times last night, but Kevin hadn't answered. How could he explain what had happened? How could he tell his father that he had arrested the new police commissioner because of his own bias and pride? Kevin turned on the local news as he made coffee. The story was already breaking. A reporter stood outside police headquarters. Sources: Inside, the department confirmed that yesterday, a patrol officer arrested Detective Diane Powell, who is set to be announced as the city's new police commissioner today. Detective Powell was allegedly checking on a family member's store when the officer mistook her for a burglar. Neither the department nor the mayor's office has released an official statement yet, but a press conference is scheduled for 9 this morning. Kevin turned off the TV. He couldn't bear to hear more. He finished his coffee and put on a clean suit, not his uniform. Commissioner Powell had told him not to wear it to the press conference. He was attending as an observer, not as an officer on duty. When Kevin arrived at City Hall, reporters crowded the steps. He kept his head down and slipped in through a side entrance as he had been instructed. A staff member from the mayor's office led him to a small room near the press conference area. "Wait here," the staff member said. "Someone will come get you if you're needed." Kevin sat alone in the room, listening to the muffled sounds of the press gathering nearby. His phone buzzed with messages from fellow officers. Some offered support. Others expressed disbelief at his mistake. A few were angry that he had embarrassed the department. The door opened, and Kevin stood up quickly. It was Diane Powell, dressed in a sharp blue suit, looking every bit the commissioner she was about to be officially named. "Officer Gregory," she said with a nod. "I want to go over how this will work. The mayor will make the announcement about my appointment. He will briefly mention yesterday's incident as an example of why change is needed in the department. He will not name you, but the press already knows who you are." Kevin nodded. "I understand, ma'am. After the mayor speaks, I will make some remarks about my vision for the department. Then I will take questions. If I'm asked about you specifically, I will say that the officer involved is being assigned to help develop new training protocols. I will not discuss disciplinary actions or call for your removal. Is that clear?" "Yes, ma'am." "Thank you, ma'am." Diane studied him for a moment. "This won't be easy for you, Gregory. There will be people who think you got off too lightly. There will be others who will defend your actions no matter what. Both sides miss the point." "What is the point, ma'am?" Kevin asked. "The point is that this isn't about just you or just me. It's about a system that needs to change." Diane checked her watch. "It's time. Remember, stay in this room unless you're called for." She left and Kevin sat back down, his heart racing. He could hear the press conference beginning. Mayor Collins's voice came through the walls, though Kevin couldn't make out the exact words. There was applause, probably as the mayor introduced Diane. Then her voice, clear and strong, came through. Kevin strained to hear. "Honored to accept this position as your new police commissioner. I come to this role with 20 years of experience as an officer in this department. I know its strengths and I know its weaknesses." Kevin's phone buzzed again. It was a text from his father. "I'm watching the press conference. Call me when it's over." Kevin put the phone away, feeling sick. His father was watching. Everyone was watching. Diane's voice continued. "Yesterday's incident, while unfortunate, highlights exactly why I accepted this position. We have work to do within our own department. Bias, both conscious and unconscious, affects how we police our communities. It affects who we see as suspicious and who we see as citizens. It affects how we listen and who we believe." There was murmuring from the press. Kevin could imagine the reporters leaning forward, hungry for details about the incident. Rather than focus on one officer's mistake, I want to focus on the opportunity this presents. An opportunity to examine our training, our policies, and our culture. An opportunity to do better, to be better, for all the communities we serve. The questions started. Kevin could hear reporters calling out, "Commissioner Powell, can you tell us more about the incident yesterday? Was the officer who arrested you disciplined? Do you believe this was a case of racial profiling?" Kevin held his breath, waiting for Diane's responses. "Yesterday, I was checking on my cousin's store while he was out of town. I was in casual clothes, not in uniform. An officer saw me having trouble with the lock and assumed I was trying to break in. When I tried to identify myself as a police detective, the officer did not give me the opportunity to show my badge. This is a perfect Example of assumptions and split-second judgments that happen every day. The officer has not been fired. Instead, he will be working directly with me to develop new training protocols for the department. I believe that real change comes not from punishment alone, but from education and growth. Was race a factor? I can't say what was in the officer's mind, but I can say that all of us carry biases, often unconscious ones. The important thing is to recognize them and learn to check them before they lead to harmful actions. The press conference continued for another 30 minutes. Kevin sat silently, listening to Diane skillfully handle every question. She never named him. She never called for his removal, but she also never excused what had happened. She used it as a teaching moment for the entire department, for the entire city. When it was over, Kevin heard the crowd dispersing. He checked his phone. 20 new messages, 5 missed calls from his father. News traveled fast. The door opened and Sergeant Martinez came in. "You survived," she said. "The commissioner handled it well." Kevin nodded. "She did. Your name wasn't mentioned, but everyone in the department knows it was you, and it won't take the media long to find out." Sergeant Martinez sat in a chair across from him. "What happens now?" "I report to Commissioner Powell's office this afternoon. We start working on the new training program." Sergeant Martinez nodded. "Good luck with that. She's going to push you hard." She stood up. "Oh, and you might want to call your father. He's been calling the precinct looking for you." After Sergeant Martinez left, Kevin finally called his father. He answered on the first ring. "Kevin, finally. I've been trying to reach you." "I know, Dad. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say." There was a pause. "Is it true? You arrested a black woman who tried to tell you she was a cop?" Kevin closed his eyes. "Yes, it's true." "Why? What were you thinking?" "I wasn't thinking, Dad. That's the problem. I saw what I expected to see, a suspicious person at a store that wasn't open. I didn't listen when she tried to explain." His father was quiet for a moment. "Your grandfather and I taught you better than that." "I know. So what now? Are you fired?" "No. Commissioner Powell assigned me to help create a new training program, to teach other officers about bias and better community policing." Another pause. "She gave you a second chance. Don't waste it." "I won't, Dad." After hanging up, Kevin left the small room and made his way through City Hall. People looked at him as he passed. Some recognized him. Others just saw another man in a suit. He wondered what assumptions they were making about him, just based on his appearance. Outside, most of the reporters were gone, but a few remained. One spotted him and hurried over. "Officer Gregory, can I get a statement about yesterday's incident? How do you feel about Commissioner Powell's decision not to fire you?" Kevin kept walking. No comment. More reporters noticed and followed him to his car. Questions flew at him from all sides. "Do you admit you made a mistake? Was this racial profiling? Will you apologize to Commissioner Powell?" Kevin got in his car and drove away. The reporters couldn't follow him, but their questions stayed in his mind. Would he admit his mistake? Yes, he already had, to himself and to Diane Powell. Was it racial profiling? He hadn't thought so at the time, but now he wasn't sure. Would he apologize? He hadn't yet, not really. He had accepted responsibility, but he hadn't actually said the words, "I'm sorry." Kevin drove to police headquarters. It was time for his meeting with Commissioner Powell. Time to begin making amends, not just with words, but with actions. Time to learn, to grow, to change. As he walked into the building, officers looked at him differently now. Some with disappointment, others with curiosity, a few with understanding. Kevin realized that what had happened would define him in their eyes for a long time, maybe forever, but it didn't have to define who he would become. 6 months had passed since the day Kevin arrested Diane Powell. 6 months of change, challenge, and growth. The summer heat had given way to fall coolness, and today was an important day for both Kevin and the police department. Kevin stood at the back of the training room, watching as 30 officers took their seats. They were the first group to go through the new Community Awareness and Response Training Program, CART for short. Kevin had helped develop this program under Commissioner Powell's guidance. Today was the first official session. Nervous? Sergeant, Martinez asked, coming to stand beside him. A little, Kevin admitted. What if they don't take it seriously? Then you make them take it seriously, she said. Remember, you have the Commissioner's full support. Kevin nodded. Commissioner Powell had been true to her word. Instead of firing him, she had made him face his mistake and learn from it. For the past 6 months, Kevin had worked with community leaders, psychologists, and experienced officers to create a training program that addressed bias, improved communication skills, and emphasized de-escalation techniques. Not everyone had supported the idea. Some officers thought Kevin had gotten special treatment. Others thought the whole program was a waste of time. But Commissioner Powell had made it clear this training would be mandatory for every officer in the department, from rookies to veterans. The door opened and Commissioner Powell walked in. The room fell silent. She had earned respect quickly in her new role, making thoughtful changes while listening to officers' concerns. She was firm but fair, pushing for improvement while acknowledging the challenges of the job. Good morning, she said, taking her place at the front of the room. Today marks an important step for our department. The CART program represents our commitment to better policing that serves all communities with fairness and respect. She looked around the room, making eye contact with several officers. Some of you may think you don't need this training. Some of you may think you already know everything about bias and community relations. I'm here to tell you that we all have something to learn. I've been on the force for over 20 years, and I'm still learning. Commissioner Powell gestured to Kevin. Officer Gregory will be leading today's session. Many of you know his story. 6 months ago, he arrested me because he saw a black woman in casual clothes at a store and assumed I was a criminal. Some officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The story was well known throughout the department. Officer Gregory could have lost his job that day. Instead, he spent the last 6 months working to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to someone else, someone who might not have a badge to protect them. She nodded to Kevin. The floor is yours, officer. Kevin walked to the front of the room as Commissioner Powell took a seat in the back. He looked at the faces of his fellow officers. Some seemed interested, others skeptical, a few openly hostile. 6 months ago, I made the biggest mistake of my career, Kevin began. I arrested my boss. A few chuckles broke the tension. It's easy to laugh about it now, but at the time it wasn't funny. I saw what I expected to see, a suspicious person instead of what was actually there, a police detective checking on a family store. Kevin paused. And I have to ask myself, why? Why did I see Detective Powell, Commissioner Powell, as suspicious? Was it her race? Her casual clothes? The neighborhood? Or was it something inside me? A need to prove myself, to make an arrest, to be the kind of cop I thought I should be. The room was silent now. Every officer was listening. The truth is, it was all of those things, and that's what we're going to talk about today. How our expectations, our biases, and our own needs affect how we police our communities. For the next 3 hours, Kevin led the group through discussions and exercises. They watched body camera, footage of various police interactions, and analyzed what went right and what went wrong. They practiced communication techniques that focused on listening first. They discussed real situations where bias might affect decision-making. Some officers engaged eagerly. Others were more reluctant. But by the lunch break, even the most skeptical had contributed to the discussion. As the officers filed out for lunch, Commissioner Powell approached Kevin. Good work, she said. You've got them thinking. Thank you, ma'am, Kevin replied. It's a start. More than a start. You've come a long way in 6 months. Kevin nodded. He had. The training program was only part of it. Commissioner Powell had also assigned him to community outreach in the same neighborhood where he had arrested her. At first, people had been hostile. They knew who he was, the cop who had arrested a black detective. But over time, As he showed up consistently, listened to their concerns and admitted his mistakes, some had begun to accept him. "There's someone who wants to see you," Commissioner Powell said, gesturing toward the door. Kevin turned to see his father standing there. They had spoken several times over the past months, but his father had never come to the department before. "Dad," Kevin said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "Commissioner Powell invited me," his father explained. "She thought I might want to see what you've been working on." Kevin looked at Commissioner Powell, who smiled slightly. "I'll leave you two to talk," she said, walking away. "So," his father said, looking around the training room, "this is it? The program you helped create?" "Yes," Kevin replied. "What do you think?" His father picked up one of the training manuals from a desk. "I think it's about time. When I was on the force, we didn't talk about these things. Bias, community relations, it was all learn as you go. Usually the hard way." "Did you ever make mistakes like I did?" Kevin asked. It was a question he had wanted to ask for months. His father was quiet for a moment. "Yes, different times, different mistakes, but yes." He put the manual down. "The difference is you're doing something about it. Not just for yourself, but for other officers too." A weight lifted from Kevin's shoulders. His father's approval meant more than he had realized. After lunch, the training continued. The afternoon session focused on practical scenarios, how to approach different situations with awareness and care. The officers role-played various encounters, with Kevin and Sergeant Martinez providing feedback. At the end of the day, Commissioner Powell returned to address the group. "This is just the beginning," she told them. "What you've learned today isn't about checking a box or completing a requirement. It's about changing how we think and act every day on the job. It's about becoming better officers and building better relationships with the communities we serve." She looked at Kevin. Officer Gregory made a mistake that could have ended his career. Instead, he chose to learn from it and help others learn too. That's the kind of growth I want to see from every officer in this department. As the training session ended and officers began to leave, some stopped to talk with Kevin. A few thanked him for the training. Others shared their own experiences. One veteran officer admitted that the session had made him rethink some of his own approaches. Kevin's father waited until everyone had left. "I'm proud of you," he said simply. Those 4 words meant everything to Kevin. Later that evening, Kevin and Commissioner Powell walked through the neighborhood where everything had started 6 months ago. They stopped outside Leon's grocery and deli. "My cousin wants to meet you," Diane said. "He's been curious about the officer who arrested me at his store." Kevin felt nervous, but he nodded. "I'd like to meet him too." Inside, Leon was stocking shelves. He was a friendly man with gray in his beard and kind eyes like his cousin. "So you're the famous Officer Gregory," Leon said, shaking Kevin's hand. "Diane tells me you're doing good work now." "I'm trying," Kevin replied honestly. "That's all any of us can do," Leon said. "Try to be better today than we were yesterday." As Kevin left the store with Commissioner Powell, he looked back at the door where he had made his mistake 6 months ago. One moment, one decision had changed his life completely, but it had also changed him. He was not the same officer who had proudly made that arrest. He was becoming someone different, someone better. "Ready for tomorrow?" Commissioner Powell asked as they walked. "You've got another training group at 8. "Ready," Kevin replied. And he was. Ready to continue learning, ready to help others learn, ready to be part of the change that was slowly happening in the department. It wouldn't be easy. Change never was. But it was necessary. And for the first time in his career, Kevin truly understood what it meant to protect and serve all people, not just some.